Welcome back, peasants. This is your favorite cult leader. For those of you who are new on video number one, like I said at the beginning, hopefully I'll be your new favorite cult leader by the end of video one. Here we are, video two. I do hope that if there's any other racist cult leaders in your life, by this point that you have unceremoniously thrown them out the nearest window and placed my humble name at the number one slot on your list of favorite racist cult leaders. Because if you are not, by this point, I am already offended. Because this particular racist cult leader put probably 15,000 hours of work into video number one and video number two and everything else we're going to be doing. So, I hope my hard work pays off. And I hope that I can make it to the number one spot on your top 5 racist cult leaders, or maybe top 10 favorite racist cult leaders. So, if I'm your number one, if you're new to this, and this is the second video you're watching on the 3.0 Contract Killer course, go ahead and comment down below and let me know if I'm your favorite racist cult leader. If I'm not, let me know who is your favorite racist cult leader, because I need to study, try to do better, because my goal, my ambition is to be the greatest racist cult leader that has ever existed since the dawn of humanity. And with that said, welcome to video number 2. One of the things I wanted to cover with you guys in video number 1 that I did not is dictionaries. So we're going to start this one off with dictionaries. So I used to have a state citizen theory page, took it down because I was going to have to rewrite it again for 3.0, and we just don't need it because we have the treatise, so I just got rid of it. So there was a bunch of dictionaries on that page. Now you can go to state citizen resources, and you can go down to important note number 2, and it has the date here of when the state citizen theory page was taken down. The state citizen theory page was originally the state national theory page, and it was the main piece when everything started, back when I launched my website back in March 14th of 2022. It was pretty much just the state national theory page, which as we researched, it became the state citizen theory page, and then it got taken down on April 13th, 2026, after I had probably rewritten it probably over 100 times. I rewrote it as we went through research. So by the time we retired it, it was a bit of an emotional experience, but it had to be done. The treatise is just phenomenal. The book, everything has gotten so much better, and it's just not worth having it anymore. So here you can get the Black's Law dictionaries here, but you can get it. I mean, dude, when I first wrote all this and did all this, it was kind of hard to find some of these dictionaries. Now you can get these dictionaries. You can sneeze and get these dictionaries. So be sure you have these on your phone. Be sure you have these. And then another thing I wanted to cover with you is etymology, right? So for example, on my flow chart, the one we were covering in the last video, we have important note number 1. The definition of definition means the meaning or limits / boundaries of meaning of a word, term, phrase. This is made most clear by the derivation of the word. We have late 14th century decision, setting of boundaries, determination and stating of the limits and distinctive nature of a thing, limitations, a statement of the meaning of a word or phrase, a bounding, a boundary, a limiting, prescribing, a definition, explanation. So if you're ever in any litigation or anything like that, and you see something and there's no boundaries to it, or it just seems endless, you would make it's not a definition by literally the definition of the word definition. That would be your way of handling that, right? It needs a definition, it needs a limitations or boundaries of meaning, right? To bound or limit, the boundary or end. See that? Anything that does not clearly limit or set boundaries on a meaning is not a definition. Very, very important. What I like to use is the online Etymology Dictionary, etymonline.com. Let's type in the word something like spirit, and comes up noun, and it'll have other things, other usages. Here's verb. You click on the item, and it gives you the entire history. You can go through and you can look at all of the history. This website is just by like one guy. And I've been using this website since like fucking 2010 or 2009. I'm a Scientologist, and in Scientology, whenever we look up the definitions of words, which is a huge part of our religion, we have to go and study the entire history and etymology of the word. So I don't remember when I first found out about this website, maybe back in 2010 or something like that. I've used this website tens of thousands of times over the last 15 years, 16 years. It's very, 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 very useful. Another very, very useful thing for derivations and etymologies is going to be the Etymology Explorer app. It's got like a little tree. Here it is. So this is an app that you can download. You can buy it. You can pay like a lifetime fee. I think I paid like a lifetime fee of like $200 to like never have to pay for it again. It might only be available monthly now. But I would also recommend that you get this. I believe there's a free version as well. This one has trees and meanings and clickable information as regards to breakdowns of words, etymology trees, etc. This will be a very useful power tool in your adventures in law. Okay? So with that said, let's get on to video number 2. Video number 2 is where we're going to begin the process of speaking about legal fictions. And we're going to start with the sole proprietorship. So if we go back to my flowchart, here is the sole proprietorship, right? A sole proprietor is someone who owns an unincorporated business by themselves. So that doesn't even make any sense. Unincorporated business. This whole thing is very goofy and sneaky. They pretend as though the term and the owner is the same person. So the first question I always have for everybody when it comes to the sole proprietorship or the sole prop, and the one that I think is the best to kind of start this conversation, right, is where in the flying fuck did this thing come from? So everyone just magically has a business? That's basically how like the IRS and stuff explains it if you really think about it. You got an unincorporated business. Was nobody ever going to tell me that I had a business? When the fuck did I have a business? I have a business? Who gave me a business? Where did it come from? No one's ever asked this question. I am the first person ever to say, okay, I have a business. Where in the flying fuck did this business come from? That's all you got to ask. Ask the IRS. IRS calls you this and that, sole proprietorship. Where in the fuck did this thing come from? Oh, it's just, that's how they explain it. Oh, it's just there. It's just there. No, there's 2 birth certificates. My theory is that, like I said in the last video, that other birth certificate, the short form, is the birth certificate for the sole proprietorship, W-9 tax form. So everybody wants to pretend that the sole proprietorship and the person is the same thing, but it says, look at W-9, request for taxpayer identification number and certification. The very first box, name of entity/individual. An entry is required for a sole proprietor or disregarded entity. That's another thing they call the sole proprietorship, a disregarded entity. It's so weird and stupid. Enter the owner's name on line 1 and enter the business/disregarded entity's name on line 2. So they're making it very clear There's an owner, and the owner owns a business or disregarded entity called a sole proprietorship. So this is me as a white citizen of a state. I can even put that, white citizen, California, if I wanted to. Business name. Typically all caps. It doesn't have to be all caps. It just typically is, right? Whenever I hit space, it's not registering, so I'm not able to do a space on this for some reason. Let's see. What if I typed it here and then copied it and pasted it? There we go. Oh, now it's working. Sole proprietorship. So I don't know how else you do it. People say, oh, all caps means this, all caps means that. Well, it may or it may not. It just depends. It's not always going to be a legal fiction. But the thing is that how else am I going to be able to write it in a way that shows a difference between myself as the owner, they're saying it here, and this business / disregarded entity? If I was doing like a letter or a cover letter, I would just literally say at the beginning of the letter, because myself as a white citizen of California and the sole proprietorship have the same exact name, mine's going to be written in more standard English, and then I'm going to do all caps for the sole proprietorship, but I also have a registered trademark on mine. So I would just you always see me use the registered trademark symbol. That's just one more way that I want to show and prove a separation between myself as a white citizen of California and the sole proprietorship business disregarded entity. And you can see here that they literally say the word individual and the word sole proprietor mean the same thing. It's right here. This is looking at this form for the 800 millionth time is when I finally had this crushing realization about all of this. That was back in December of 2024 is when I started to really change everything over to this new sole proprietorship style system. And as soon as I did that, 95% of all of our issues just vanished. All our passport issues, all of our IRS issues, issues with trying to get into courtrooms, everything. I mean, literally everything cleaned up. So this thing has been a huge, major breakthrough. So the sole proprietorship is a person that was born a U.S. national and a U.S. citizen at birth. So this thing is a U.S. citizen and has rights and obligations under 14th Amendment only. This one is a state citizen, has zero access to the 14th Amendment, and can only use the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, directly, and the 9th Amendment, and the 10th Amendment. Okay? I mean, you don't need to type all that. I'm just showing you that as a visual, right? So the sole proprietorship as far as I can tell, you were just kind of born with one, and people are like, oh, I want to get rid of it. Why? It gives you a complete protection in commerce. It's a beautiful thing when you understand that you're a business owner and you start operating the sole proprietorship as yourself as the owner on behalf of the sole proprietorship. Everything becomes just absolutely fucking wonderful. I don't know why you would want to get rid of the sole proprietorship. But going back to where we left off in the last video, we have here United States business, United States citizen. So the sole prop is a U.S. citizen. Because remember, legal fictions cannot be citizens of a state. They were never added in as citizens of a state. It's physically impossible for legal fictions to be under the Constitution directly or under the Bill of Rights directly. They only have access through the 14th Amendment. Okay? So, a lot of people like to say trust you hear this term Cestui v. trust and kind of all this kind of horse shit. The problem with saying trust or Cestui v. trust is if you go into court and you start saying that, they make you take on a bar card, because trusts and Cestui v. trust and kind of all this horse shit, or states or any of these terms that you hear people talking about, they're all considered separate persons that require bar cards to be represented in their courts. When you say sole proprietorship, all of a sudden nobody gives a fuck anymore. You don't need a bar card to represent a sole proprietorship in a court of law. You can look at all my cases. I've been representing the sole prop. I am all the way in the United States Supreme Court as of last week, Monday, as a sole prop on behalf of myself as a white citizen of a state. So I have that on my list here. We're going to get into that later. Just the fact that my case was docketed at the Supreme Court proves that there is this separation between a white citizen of a state and the sole proprietorship. Otherwise, they wouldn't have docketed it, right? That's the way it's structured, okay? I'm not going to get into that right now. It's kind of more advanced. But that's why I don't say Cestui v. trust. I think that's all horse shit. I don't even believe that there is one. If there is one, it's got nothing to do with you. It's just the government made a trust for its sole proprietorship. It's got nothing to do with you, really. I don't care much for it. I don't need it. I don't want it. I've also never seen anyone have any success with it, right? So, with all this in mind at this point, you can kind of think of it like this. Let's say you're in France and you want to come over to America. You don't need to naturalize through the federal system. All you do is just create a corporation of your name, Brandon Joe Williams, and that corporation experienced birth in the United States and thus is a U.S. citizen and a U.S. national. And then just get an EIN number for it, which looks just like a Social Security number. And bang, you just do everything to that person, and that's it. You're instantly a federal U.S. citizen of America. It's the easiest thing in the world. There's no reason to go through the naturalization process. The only naturalization process that you actually have to go through if you want to is if you want to become a white citizen of a state, and you would do that through the Naturalization Act of 1802. Okay. So let's get into this whole sole prop thing a little bit more. Let's go back to the flow chart. So we have here some definitions, right? So the slaughterhouse cases basically talks about exactly how this whole thing is put together and exactly how this whole sole prop thing got started. And Mr. Miller says that wherever a legislature has the right to accomplish a certain result, and that result is best attained by means of a corporation, it has the right to create such a corporation and to endow it with the powers necessary to effect the desired and lawful purpose, seems hardly to admit of debate. Here is the legal definition of public corporation. A public corporation is one created by the state for political purposes and to act as an agency in the administration of civil government. Here is the definition of de facto corporation. This is from Cornell Law School website. De facto corporation refers to the legal recognition of a corporation, even if the articles of incorporation for a corporation are not properly filed. In other words, a corporation may be said to have de facto corporate status by inadvertently failing to fully satisfy all legal requirements for the creation of corporate existence, but has exercised corporate powers in good faith. To be granted de facto corporation status, three basic requirements must be met. One, the state must have a relevant statute relating to incorporation. We see the sole prop everywhere on every single form. It's obviously there. The company must have attempted to comply with the statute in good faith. The company is being operated as a corporation and can provide evidence of same. I think the sole prop is actually does have an articles of incorporation. I think it's that second birth certificate. you would need discovery and all sorts of good stuff to really prove that fully. Okay. Here's the definition of owner. Remember on the W-9 form, it says owner of the sole prop, right? So now we're looking at this term owner on behalf of the sole prop. The term owner is used to indicate a person in whom one or more interests are vested for his own benefit. The person in whom the interests are vested has title to the interests, whether he holds them for his own benefit or the benefit of another. This is all trust terminology, right? So are you holding a title of some property for the benefit of another, meaning are you the trustee, and then you're the one administering the trust for the benefit of the beneficiary? We're going to be getting into all that later on the trust video, right? Thus, the term title, unlike ownership, is a colorless word. To say without more that a person has title to certain property does not indicate whether he holds the property for his own benefit or as a trustee. So you essentially operate as both the trustee and the beneficiary, depending on what kind of contract you were involved in. You don't need to specify which side you are operating in. You can just call yourself owner until additional clarity is needed or asked for by the opposing party. When creating a title for something or a bill of sale, it'd be good to clarify the trust structure on the document to negate the colorless nature mentioned in the definition above. Even if it is clarified that there is no trust and a white citizen of a state will be holding ownership without a trust structure, right? So trusts are pretty simple. It's just a grantor writes the trust, so it's like all the information as to how the asset's supposed to be handled. And then the trustee manages the asset on behalf of a beneficiary. So for example, a business. You can put a business in a trust. Let's take something really simple. Let's take rights to a book. So I write the book, and then I take those intellectual rights and I place them in a trust, let's say for my children. So a trustee would be appointed. The trustee would be responsible for making sure that the payments for the usage of the book rights and any sort of wheeling and dealing to make sure that the trust as a person can make money based off of the asset. And then from those proceeds that are made from that intellectual property, we have beneficiary A and beneficiary B both receiving $800 a month through the trust. That'd be like a really basic trust structure. The grantor can write the trust however he wants. It's basically like writing your own nation. That's what I think people don't understand. People think you have to go somewhere or get some kind of approval to write a trust. A trust is just a contract. You can write a trust on toilet paper in a basement or in a cave in, Nepal, and it's legal. So it's just a trust is just a contract. That's all it is. It's that simple. It's a contract where the grantor writes all of the rules of the contract and the trustee does all the actual work and the beneficiaries benefit from whatever's in the trust, and then whatever's in the trust is called the asset or res, R-E-S, of the trust. We will be getting into that more later on the trust video, but I'm just explaining that because you kind of have to have that information to understand the term owner. So a lot of people are going to be like, well, you just said the sole prop is a trust, Brandon. You just said, yeah, it operates sort of like a trust. But when you start getting into businesses and corporation type talk, they change the meaning of the word to things like beneficial owner, right? If you say the word trust, you can say the word trust all you want. And I've warned so many people not to do it. And they have to go and smash into the wall at 400 miles an hour to learn that Brandon's right. When you start saying the word trust in court, they're going to force you to go get a bar card. So if you don't believe me and you think all the sovereignty people that are running around talking about how it's a trust, and Brandon's full of shit, go out there, go into the courts, file your cases, start talking about trust this and trust that, and just watch. Watch what happens. And then come back and view my cases and see how everything I've been doing is smooth sailing since December of 2024. And then you're going to be like, oh, shit, Brandon was right. If you have to go through all that, then by all means, go through all that. I'm trying to save you all the pain that I had to go through. I'm trying to save you years of pain. If you don't want that savings, then by all means, go talk about trusts. Let's see here. So it's all the same thing with all corporations. It's just the sole prop is a very unique kind of corporation because you don't need a bar card to represent it. That's why I use it so much. Like your credit cards are not actually your name. It has your name on there. It's a sole prop. You're the owner on behalf of the sole prop. That's the sole prop is the one that the card's actually linked to. On your checks, on the bottom right-hand side, where you sign when you are at the checkout, if you look at the line and you get a magnifying glass and you look at it, it says authorized signature over and over and over again. Look up the definition of that. The definition of authorized signature is when somebody is signing on behalf of another person. That other person is the sole proprietorship. That's why the IRS can get into your bank account. If you have a bank account of your name, that's how they can get into it. It's not really you. It's the sole proprietorship. They made it. It's a U.S. citizen. It's a federal citizen. It's a national citizen, just like we saw in Madden versus Commissioner. That sole proprietorship U.S. citizen does not have the right to even have a bank account. That's how all that works. So I got rid of my personal account. I don't have any personal accounts. I have only trust accounts for years. So that's all sole prop. The passport is being issued to the sole prop. The credit cards are being issued to the sole prop. Whenever you sign a check, it's on behalf of the sole prop. So what's happening is you're actually a business owner, and the business is the name that's going on everything. When the IRS writes to your name, they're writing to the sole prop, and then you're answering on behalf of the sole prop. You just didn't realize that, right? So let's get into the sole prop thing a little bit more. So we have 20 CFR 422.104. And I mentioned this in the last video, but we're going to get into it now. 422.104, right? Yeah. Who can be assigned a social security number? Okay. A United States citizen, which would be any corporation born in the United States, any trust born in the United States, the sole prop is a U.S. citizen. An alien lawfully admitted to the United States for permanent residence. And then an alien who cannot provide evidence of alien status showing lawful admission, blah, 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 right? So state citizen's not here. State citizen can't have a social security number. So if you say you are a state citizen, but you say you have a social security number, you're committing perjury one way or the other because those two facts can't be in the same sentence. It's physically and legally impossible. I have never had a social security number. I was born a white citizen of Indiana. So I started trying to think, what in God's name has the fucking SSN then? It can't be me. It's physically impossible. And then eventually I realized, oh, duh, it's the sole proprietorship. And you can see that in 26 CFR 301.7701-11. Social security number. For purposes of this chapter, this is the Internal Revenue Code, the tax code. The term social security number means the taxpayer identifying number of an individual or a state. Remember, individual can include legal fictions, as we saw in the definition, which is assigned. So it's the taxpayer identifying number of an individual or an estate. So it's the taxpayer identifying number of the sole proprietorship. Because you can't have one as a white citizen of a state. If you say you do have one, you should be going to prison for perjury. The term taxpayer is defined. They actually have the wrong section here, which is hilarious. It's actually 7701 subsection A14, not 1. I don't know what they're doing there. So if we go to look at the definition of the word taxpayer, we're going to be getting into the tax stuff later after we go through negotiable instruments. So we're just going to take just a moment on this. We're not going to get into the tax stuff too much because without negotiable instruments, the tax conversation is kind of stupid. The term taxpayer means any person subject to any internal revenue tax. So a person, any man, woman, child, or legal fiction with rights and obligations under the 14th Amendment that is subject to internal revenue tax has a social security number. That number is a taxpayer identifying number. So by giving someone a social security number, you're saying that you are a taxpayer at that same sentence. So again, I don't have an SSN. I've never had an SSN. If I said I had an SSN, I'd be going to prison. I can't pay taxes. I'd be going to prison. If I said I was a taxpayer, I'd also be going to prison. I can't have a taxpayer identifying number because I'm not a taxpayer. So if I gave someone a Social Security number, said it was mine, under penalty of perjury, I'd be going to prison. If I said I was a taxpayer under penalty of perjury, I'd be going to prison. If I paid taxes under penalty of perjury, which you have to do to pay taxes, I'd be going to prison. None of this has anything to do with a white citizen of a state, even if the white citizen of a state wants it to be part of who he is. Even if I wanted to get a Social Security number, I do not qualify to have one. I am not one of the classes of persons eligible for SSN assignment. It is impossible. Can't happen. Never has happened. Ever. Has never happened. Will never happen. Cannot happen. Impossible. Illegal. Perjury. Death. Brimstone. Fire. Even if you wanted it. Oh, Brendan, what happens? Doesn't matter. What happens to all the money you already put? I don't know. Call them up. It's impossible. If you were born a white citizen of a state, it's impossible that you have a Social Security number. So who the fuck has it? There's only one possible other option, and the answer is your sole proprietorship. There is no other possible answer. I have searched high and low. It is the only possible answer. There are no other possibilities. If you are not white and you are not a citizen of a state at birth, if you were born in Puerto Rico as a white man, this might be more complicated because technically you could have qualified for an SSN at birth. I did not qualify for an SSN at birth because I am white and I was born in Indiana. It is physically impossible that at birth I qualified for an SSN. So who did they give it to? Where did this thing come from? And who did they give it to? They gave it to him. There's no other options, guys. Same thing with a passport. They can't give you a passport. Persons entitled to a passport. 22 USC 212. No passport shall be granted or issued to or verified for any other person. Right away. I don't even need to read anymore. I see the word persons. It's got nothing to do with me. Even if I wanted to literally suck cock, physically suck cock in a glory hole, in a gay bar, I was willing to literally sell one of my kidneys to try to get a passport. Can't get one. Sorry. When you see that word persons as a white citizen of a state, it means not for you, brother. Okay? Persons. It's got nothing to do with me. Nothing. It's all Dred Scott. Dred Scott is still alive and well. In fact, Dred Scott is everywhere. Everything is Dred Scott versus Sanford. Everywhere you go, oh, that's irrelevant. That's just racism. No one cares about that. That was overturned by the 14th Amendment. Dred Scott is everywhere. Everything is Dred Scott. Every sentence is Dred Scott versus Sanford. And that's the part that's so crazy. So taxpayer. Okay. So we've covered that. So let's go back to the timeline. So we ended off here. 14th Amendment protections expanded in Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad Company to include corporations. That's where legal fictions were added into the definition of persons under the 14th Amendment, right? Now, Indians were then added into having citizenship under the 14th Amendment in the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924. But if you look at the actual act, it only applied to the congressional definition of the word state, meaning number 2 from above. Okay, so this is where we're going to get into these various zones. Okay, so first and foremost, we have to read some quotes from Thomas Jefferson explaining the reasoning behind the separation between the congressional zone and a republic of sovereign states, which we already covered earlier in the Downs versus Bidwell. We have in this country substantially or practically two national governments, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument by exercising such powers as other nations of the earth are accustomed to exercise. Right? This is normal. This is not anything goofy or weird or evil. Okay? The states can best govern our home concerns, and the general government our foreign ones. I wish, therefore, never to see all offices transferred to Washington, where, further withdrawn from the eyes of the people, they may more secretly be bought and sold at market. That's where we are today. See? The fucking TJ in the house, bro. Thomas Jefferson. Number 2. My general plan would be to make the states one as to everything connected with foreign nations and several as to everything purely domestic, meaning separated. Okay? And we'll talk more about what all this means, okay, in a moment. Number 3. Our citizens have wisely formed themselves into one nation as to others and several states as among themselves. To the United Nation belongs our external and mutual relations, to each state severally the care of our persons, our property. That's not the same definition of persons. That's like personal belongings. If you look up the normal, like when you look at the the Fourth or Fifth Amendment, someone secure in their persons. That's a different definition referring to like private property that an individual may own or whatever. You should look that up separately. That's actually a different definition. So care of our persons, our property, our reputation, and religious freedom. This wise distribution, if carefully preserved, will prove, I trust, from example, that while smaller governments are better adapted to the ordinary objects of society, larger confederations more effectually secure independence and the preservation of republican government. The true theory of our this is number 4. The true theory of our Constitution is surely the wisest and best. By the way, all of this information, all the theory behind how they built out the Constitution and everything is in The Law of Nations by Emer D. Vattel, which is that big green book that I recommended that you purchase and read at the beginning of the course. So even if a lot of this doesn't make perfect sense right now, you're going to know as much, literally, I'm not even kidding, as the Founding Fathers did, because that was the basis of everything that they're doing here. So keep that in mind as well, including the Ninth Amendment, including all the stuff, okay? Let's restart number 4 from the beginning. The true theory of our Constitution is surely the wisest and best, that the states are independent as to everything within themselves and united as to everything respecting foreign nations. Let the general government be once reduced to foreign concerns only, and let our affairs be disentangled from those of all other nations, except as to commerce, which the merchants will manage the better, the more they are left free to manage for themselves. And our general government may be reduced to a very simple organization and a very inexpensive one, a few plain duties to be performed by a few servants. And if you go back in time, like one of the things I find really fascinating is I think on the Washington, D.C. website, they have a 3D timestamp of all of Washington, D.C. and all the buildings that were built. In the early 1900s is when all that stuff was built. Like if you go back in time, you can even ask AI about a lot of this. The Supreme Court back in the 1800s, they used to hold court in like people's homes that were donated for time, like local clubs, I think even Freemason clubs and stuff like that. They didn't have their own building until like 1917 or 1914. I forget exactly when. That big building that you see them operating in now, they never had any of that shit. This is a ragtag, rebel fucking... This whole country is Daniel fucking Boone, man. And you guys are going to realize all that in my book. The definition of an American, if I had... people, I thought about it after I rewrote the book and did all my stuff. What's the definition of an American? The definition of American is a person, a man or a woman, that can make anything from nothing. I'm dead serious. If I were to boil my whole book down to one sentence... it would be an American is somebody who can make nothing, who can make everything out of nothing. That's an American, right? So the bootstrapping and a lot of that kind of stuff, if you go back and look at the history of our nation, you'll see a lot. It was like a few guys and they had like nothing and they fucking loved this country and that was it. And that's your Roger B. Tanneys, your John Marshalls, your Samuel Freeman Millers, okay? It's a whole different breed that no one in this culture has ever seen. That's why you guys can't believe it. I can't believe it. You think of these like Nancy Pelosi's and these Joe Bidens. This shit's so fucking irrelevant. Has nothing to do with our country, bro. Nothing. Trump, I'm sorry. Nothing to do with what this country's all about. Zero. Okay? And when you go back in time and you start to really look at everything, you will come to that same realization. Okay. Number 5, the best general key for the solution of questions of power between our governments is the fact that, quote, every foreign and federal power is given to the federal government and to the states, every power purely domestic, end quote. I recollect but one instance of control vested in the federal over the state authorities in a manner purely domestic, which is that of metallic tenders, meaning gold and silver coins. The federal is, in truth, our foreign government, which department alone is taken from the sovereignty of the separate states. So this is the theory that explains the differences in meaning behind the term United States and the term state, which we're going to cover now. Okay. So the term state shifts dramatically and has multiple meanings based off of the information we just covered. Meaning number 1 is in a constitutional context. It means, quote, one of the several states of the Union only and does not include U.S. territories or insular possessions, congressional zones, such as the District of Columbia. This is covered in detail in that case earlier I was talking about, Hepburn and Dundas v. Elsie, right? If you type this case into the internet or AI, it will tell you that some stupid-ass case in 1949 overturned Hepburn and Dundas v. Elsie. That is complete horseshit because the case, I went and checked it out. That case, the plaintiff and the defendant in that case were both corporations. Corporations were never entered in as people under state citizenship. It's physically impossible. The only reason why the courts think that Hepburn and Dundas versus Elsie was ever overturned is because they're fucking retarded and they don't know the difference between a state citizen and a federal citizen. So you'll have to explain all that. But be careful. This case, to my knowledge, AI will tell you all sorts of goofiness. You have to double check all into it and check everything because I don't think Hepburn and Dundas v. Elsie has ever been overturned. Okay, so be careful with that. You don't typically see that kind of goofiness. AI is getting pretty good with a lot of this stuff, but be careful on that one because I think you're going to find some goofiness. Back into what it says here. This is exactly how they got around having to use gold and silver coins from Article 1, Section 10 in the legal tender cases. So if you go and read the legal tender cases from the late 1800s, that's how they created the entire system of legal tender. And then you see on the front of your Federal Reserve note, this is legal tender for all debts, public and private, but yeah. So what they said in the legal tender cases, they said no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, which we're going to get into in the negotiable instruments video coming soon. That comes from Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. But they said that the definition of the word state, when they say no state shall, doesn't include the District of Columbia. And the District of Columbia is not under the provision of Article 1, Section 10. And they were actually 100% correct in that. That is correct. That's also what Hepburn and Dundas v. Elsie says. And that's how the federal government was able to issue Federal Reserve notes, U.S. currency notes, etc. the legal tender system was literally born out of the differences in the definition of the word state in the Constitution versus and how the constitutional definition of the word state does not apply to the federal government or any congressional zone, such as any U.S. territory or insular possession. Okay. That's meaning number one. Meaning number two is now in a federal or congressional context, meaning any federal law, anything like that. And in contrast to the constitutional definition, this is the one that almost anything you read, they're using this meaning number two. It's very, very, very extremely rare that you'll even see meaning number one. Meaning number one pretty much only applies when you're reading the Constitution. Meaning number two applies most of the time when you're reading literally anything else that's not the Constitution. That cleans up a lot of confusion people have had. It took me a long time to figure all of this out, okay? So the meaning number two definition, it means any separate zone that is under the exclusive jurisdiction of Congress. That's actually an even better definition, right? And we'll get into how all that works and stuff like that here in just a moment. But that means like Puerto Rico, District of Columbia, U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa. These are areas that are under, well, I don't even know if American Samoa actually would be. That one might actually not be. I'm not 100% sure on that because they're not even really citizens. They're non-citizen nationals of the United States, right? The statutory class that was made with the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952 when we created that treaty class, right? So, but this definition is used in every federal statute or context and most state law as well, because state law is really just secretly federal law, which we'll get into later. U.S. citizens. So like, state of California is listed on Dun & Bradstreet as a business. It's got a U.S. citizen governor. That alone tells you it's not really part of the constitutional definition of the word state. So the entire police force that exists is based off of the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment is using definition number one. So the governor of the state of California would need to be a white citizen of California. So the fact that the governor of California is Gavin Newsom means they're using meaning number two of the word state. The 10th Amendment has absolutely no application. It actually, what this actually means is state of California is actually a U.S. citizen. It's a 14th Amendment citizen. It has no right to the 10th Amendment at all. So if someone were to take that argument into a court of law and win at the Supreme Court level, it would literally obliterate the entire police force in the whole country. The police force is based off of a complete fallacy. The police force shouldn't exist. The sheriff's office is really the only law enforcement that should exist. Whether you like the police or not, it doesn't fucking matter. It's based off of an incorrect definition of state in relation to the use of the 10th Amendment. State of California, which is the governor is a U.S. citizen, and it's listed as a business on Dun & Bradstreet, is a U.S. citizen. It's a 14th Amendment citizen and has absolutely no right to the 10th Amendment whatsoever, which is the entire basis of the police powers. Okay? So in a federal or congressional context, the definition of the word state means any separate zone that is under the exclusive jurisdiction of Congress. The exclusive jurisdiction of the District of Columbia. That's what they're referring to here, right? So, you see this everywhere. You see this all over the place. You'll see this now. Now that I've shown it to you, you'll see it everywhere. Everywhere you look, you're going to find the term state includes the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Guam, the Virgin Islands of the United States, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. And when you start bringing this stuff up in court, the bar cards, every single time they say, oh, the word includes means it's other things and then also these things. And I'm like, so you're telling me that you can just add in whatever the fuck you want? You can just fucking add in whatever you want. That's why there's important note number one. Because when you start talking about this stuff, they're going to say, oh, it includes the states too. It says include. So it's the states plus all this other stuff. And you would say, whoa, anything that does not clearly limit or set boundaries on the meaning of a word is not in itself a definition. So are you saying that this is not a definition? What are you saying? Because if you're saying it's just open-ended with the word includes, then that means it's not, by definition, it's not a definition. And the bar card's short circuit. It's fucking hilarious, right? The only place I've ever seen them actually talk about the 50 independent states of the Union is the definition of continental United States, which is at 43 U.S.C. Section 50.4, and the definition means the contiguous 48 states and Alaska, because Hawaii, I don't think, was a state when they made this definition. Contiguous means like sharing borders, like the borders touch each other. I've never, ever, ever seen any definition of state or United States where it talks like this and clearly includes the states of the Union in the definition. It's always something like this: includes the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Guam, Virgin Islands of the United States, Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. It's always something like this. Even Rule 47 of the Supreme Court looks like this. Even the removal from state court to federal court. And by the way, this whole thing that we're getting into right now is the basis of my Supreme Court's submission. Where is the section in Title 28 talking about removal from state to federal court? Oh, jeez. Let me pull up. I'll show you guys how to look up my cases. You can go to williamswilliamslawfirm.com, current and previous litigation. We're going to go down to my docket for my Supreme Court case that was just docketed last week. We're going to go to my petition for my Supreme Court case, and you can see here whether a removal from state to federal court can take place under 28 U.S.C. 1442 when the originating court does not fall under the definition of state court in the definition of state court. So 28 U.S.C. 1442, 28 U.S.C. 1442. The case that I was in was removed from state to federal court. If you go down to A6, the term state court includes the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, a court of a United States territory or insular possession, Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and a tribal court. And then the attorney, the DOJ attorney, went fucking ballistic. Includes also means all the states of the Union. No, it doesn't, fuck. No, it doesn't, because the federal government does not have exclusive territorial jurisdiction over places like California. So California wouldn't be a part of the definition of state court in this section. The courts did not agree with me, and that's why the case ended up all the way in the Supreme Court. Because it's fucking crystal clear that the federal courts would not have a jurisdiction to pull from a state court. That's fucking hilariously insane that even exists, okay? So that's meaning number 2. And then meaning number 3 is nonspecific and referring to any nation in general. This is typically used when they're talking about like a sample sentence, like any foreign state is exempt from these rules. It's not capitalized. It's not referring to any specific state. You see this in like diplomatic immunity type stuff. You see this in like Department of the Interior type stuff sometimes. You'll definitely see it in Department of State type stuff involving diplomats, consuls, consulates. That's typically when you're going to see meaning 3 being used. So meaning 1 is constitutional. Meaning 2 is pretty much everything that's not constitutional. And then meaning 3 is used for international relations and stuff like that. But keep in mind, the states are ultimately domestic, as we've already covered here, and the federal government is for foreign concern. So if I explain this to you with all this stuff in view, so originally the way that Congress was built, the way that the Washington, D.C. was built, was you had a bunch of white citizens, let's say in California, and all the white citizens of the state would vote to send their white citizen representatives to Congress. So all the white citizens of Utah would send their Utah white citizen representatives. All of the white citizens of Texas would send all their white citizen representatives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then Congress, made up of all these white citizens of the state, would represent their home state in Congress on the international playing field. So the states are domestic in their concern. So if you had like a flow line, the states are inward. And then there'd be another line that would run from the state to Washington, D.C. And then from Washington, D.C., you'd have all these lines going out to every country on the planet. But you wouldn't have any direct line from someplace outside of the United States coming straight into California necessarily. It would be like the line would come into Washington, D.C., and then would bounce to California. Because Washington, D.C. was supposed to be that like international buffer, and that's the congressional zone. And like the whole thing was like, we're supposed to pick our best white citizens to represent us. And then like there's such shining examples of like the best white citizens of our zone that they're allowed to kind of do whatever they want in their zone, and they're not under all of the restraints of the Constitution. The states are under the restraints of the Constitution, but the congressional zone is not. And the congressional zone is essentially a corporation that the white citizens set up. The thing that fucked it all up was the creation of the U.S. citizen class. Because now it's like whenever someone goes to Washington, D.C., now it's like they all become like U.S. citizens or whatever. And they're not really tied necessarily to their state in the same way. They still have like state representation, but they aren't citizens of that state representing that state on the international playing field. And that's what Congress is supposed to be. And the U.S. citizen class like completely fucked all that up, basically, right? Besides the racial stuff. I mean, even besides that, I'm not even necessarily talking about that specifically. I mean, it's a white, again, America is a white rebellion project of white Christian Europeans rebelling against other white Christian Europeans. Whether you like it or not, I don't give a fuck. If I was Nairobi black, I'd be telling you the same thing. Whether I like it or not, I just happen to be white, thank God. So it works for me, great. I'm going to start using the Ninth Amendment quite a lot in my life now that I realize all this stuff. But, you know, if you get emotional, I'm just going to block you. There's no point. People have been emotional for 200 years. It hasn't gotten us anywhere. It does nothing for anybody. So fuck you, just to be clear. So United States is the same term that gets goofy based off of if you're in the domestic republic zone or if you're in the congressional democracy zone, right? We have two totally separate systems as covered in Downs versus Bidwell. We have two total governments. We have the federal democracy, and the citizens of that federal democracy is U.S. citizens, national citizens, citizens of the United States, federal citizens. That's the terminology that they use in the courts. And then the republic is for the white people, the white citizens of the states. That's the republic. So we have two entirely separate systems, democracy, republic. The republic is for the white people. The republic is the original citizenship class that's being spoken about in the Constitution. The white people are the ones who are actually parties to the Constitution directly, and then everybody else who's a citizen of the United States is not. They have to be given bits and pieces through congressional statute and the Incorporation Doctrine, which we will cover later. So, United States. Okay, so for USC 71, and you can type all this into the internet and look it all up, all that part of the territory of the United States included within the present limits of the District of Columbia shall be the present seat of government of the United States, right? In UCC 9-307H, we see here the United States is located in the District of Columbia. Now, again, this sounds so fucking nefarious, But remember, the federal government was created for international and foreign relations. So when external foreign countries are looking at us, like legally, all they can see is Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. being that buffer is called United States. I was wrong about that in my 1.0 and my 2.0 course. It's actually, that's the way it's always been set up. Like from the external world in to the United States of America, United States would be Washington, D.C., which is like the administrative buffer zone between us and our domestic concerns at home. I'm a white citizen of California. I'm at home. I'm in the domestic space. Washington, D.C. is that international space, and that's why Washington, D.C. is called United States, because for every external use, it is. And all of our diplomatic embassies are all in Washington, D.C. because you can't put an embassy in California because California is domestic entirely in its concerns. Washington, D.C. is the international playing field. So that's why all of this is defined the way that it is, right? 18 U.S.C. 5 and then 18 U.S.C. 7. So 18 U.S.C. 5, the term United States, as used in this title in a territorial sense, includes all places and waters, continental or insular, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, except the canal zone. They need to clean up this definition, because the canal zone is referring to a section of Panama that used to be a U.S. territory under the District of Columbia, but it's not anymore since 1999. So you can just remove that. But I know people are going to go type this shit into the internet and look it up for themselves, so I didn't want to just remove it and not explain that. So I wanted to put what you're going to find when you type it in. So what they're saying here is any area under the exclusive jurisdiction of Congress or the District of Columbia. So that would include any U.S. territory, insular possession, places like ports. Like big ports and stuff like that are international. It's a lot of like external nations coming in and dropping things off and buying things. So ports fall under that exclusive federal jurisdiction, right? So that's what 18 U.S.C. 5 is referring to. It's referring to any place under the exclusive territorial jurisdiction of Congress. That wouldn't include things like California, Utah, Texas, Florida. Those are all totally separate. Those are constitutional zones under the Republic, and they're mainly domestic in nature, and the federal government has no real right to fuck with them or have anything to do with them. How did that get fucked up? Everyone calls themselves a U.S. citizen. A U.S. citizen is a citizen of Congress. That's how it got all fucked up. When you say I'm a U.S. citizen, it creates a direct link between you and the District of Columbia. If you said, no, I'm a white citizen in California, there is no direct link. You severed the direct link because you're in a totally separate constitutional zone that's not under 18 U.S.C. 5. So if you're a U.S. citizen and you're in California, you're a resident of California. Your citizenship does not lie in California, and you can actually see that in voter registration. So if I were to show you voter registration, I am one of the following: a U.S. citizen and resident of California, a citizen of the District of Columbia, a non-white person or a white person who's not in a state of the union as per the constitutional definition, and resident, meaning not a citizen of California, but I'm in that zone and I owe allegiance to the place that is protecting me of California, as I've already covered before, right? Every single one of these requires you to say you're a U.S. citizen, because all voting is presumed to be under the 15th Amendment, which is for Negroes. The 15th Amendment gave Negroes the right to vote. So essentially, if you were to boil down all of this on this whole screen, is I'm a Negro. Obviously, there's a lot more to it, but that's basically what all of these bubble boxes are saying. And you can go even farther. You can say a Negro who was enslaved and is now not enslaved, because you could argue and say it doesn't include Negroes that weren't in slavery or weren't the children of Negroes who were in slavery. Like, if you wanted to go down that road, you could also fight it that way too. So it just depends on how you want to look at it. You could say Negro, or you could say released previously enslaved Negro would probably be more legally correct, right? And that's what all of these are saying. So voter registration just makes you a Negro, and it just makes you a resident in California. So you just cancel it. I just canceled mine. I can't vote. I can't be a voter. I'm not a resident, so I'm not going to tell you I'm a resident. I'm not a U.S. citizen. So if I clicked any of these boxes, I'd be committing perjury, and I'd be a felon up to 1 year in prison. Okay? So all of these areas and places and waters that are subject to the jurisdiction of the federal government, which is called United States, all fall under 4 U.S.C. 72. All offices attached to the seat of government shall be exercised in the District of Columbia and not elsewhere except as otherwise expressly provided by law. That's why they're called insular possessions. So all these zones are basically like owned property held by this corporate entity that all the white citizens of a state set up. United States, which is a company or a corporation, is basically a giant holding company that holds property and administers property as trustees on behalf of the white citizens of the states. We set it up. So it's basically like white citizens of the states were the grantor of the federal government as a trust. All the people who are working in Congress and stuff like that are all the trustees, and then we are essentially the beneficiaries. But none of that includes U.S. citizens. And the U.S. citizen class is basically what kind of fucked all that up, basically, right? All these zones, like Guam, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, all those zones operate essentially and are exercised in the District of Columbia, and that's exactly why the definition that we saw earlier when they're removing a case from state to federal court, that's exactly why the definition of state court says what it says. Let me see here. Uh, 1442, I think it was. Yeah. And that's exactly why it says here the term state court includes the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, a court of a United States territory, meaning any place that falls within 18 U.S.C. 5, anything that's under the exclusive territorial jurisdiction of the United States, any territory or insular possession, and a tribal court. The tribal court thing's probably involving the Commerce Clause. I don't know if we're going to get into all that necessarily, but basically, you can move a case from any territorial zone to federal court because federal court operates under 4 U.S.C. 72. It operates as though it's in the District of Columbia. So does Guam. Federal court operates as though it's in the District of Columbia. So does the Northern Mariana Islands. Federal courts operate under 4 U.S.C. 72. They operate as though they're in the District of Columbia. So does Puerto Rico. You see that? California does not operate that way at all, and thus it's not a part of the definition of the term state court. So by simplifying the above, here is everything in English. The term United States, when used as a term of Congress, as contrast to the constitutional meaning, means, quote, any territory or insular possession of the federal government, as well as any place under the special maritime or territorial jurisdiction of the United States defined in 18 U.S.C. 7. And all these areas are exercised in the District of Columbia. So people are always talking about maritime admiralty. You see that all over the place in the sovereignty movement. It's a lot less than it used to be. Everyone used to say that all the time. So I'm going to explain that to you. And it's the first time ever in the entire history of the sovereignty movement anyone's ever explained it correctly. And it took me a long time to figure this out. And I think it's best explained at 18 U.S.C. 7, special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the United States defined. Now again, the federal government has to do with outside of the continental zones of the United States and international relations and foreign relations, them coming to us coming to them, whereas the states are entirely domestic in concerns and design, as we've already covered from the quotes from TJ, okay? So special maritime and territorial jurisdiction, So when someone is outside of the continental zone and they're on international waters on a boat, would that have something to do with a direct state such as California, which is entirely domestic in its concerns? Or would that be more of a foreign concern outside of any of the boundaries of the states? And would that be more of a federal concern? Now you're starting to see this whole special maritime and territorial jurisdiction idea, okay? People say that's how they get jurisdiction on everybody, through this special maritime admiralty jurisdiction. No, the way they get jurisdiction on everybody is through the 14th Amendment. Everyone's running around talking about admiralty maritime, and that's completely wrong. They should be talking about the 14th Amendment. Practically everybody falls under the 14th Amendment, even illegal aliens. I haven't covered that with you. That's the very last piece of the timeline. I can just jump over there real quick. Plyer v. Doe from 1982 further expanded the protections of the 14th Amendment to include illegal aliens. Yes, this basically means that U.S. citizens and illegal aliens are in the same class. People wonder, you always see that in the news, man, I'm going to become an illegal alien. They get treated better than we are. It's the same class. U.S. citizens and illegal aliens are both under the 14th Amendment. The only difference is U.S. citizens can vote, which is all presumed to be under the 15th Amendment. So the Negroes can vote. The U.S. citizens, I guess they let those Negroes vote. And then the other thing they can do is they can run for office and they can work in government because they're basically government citizens. They're federal citizens. That's the only difference between U.S. citizens and illegal aliens. And that's why they're so hard to fucking deport. Because you have all these nonprofit organizations that run out with all their liberal attorneys, and I haven't checked the cases myself, but I guarantee you, it's all 14th Amendment. They're all trying to protect and shield the illegal aliens using the 14th Amendment, and I guarantee you, if you go and read the cases, they're using Plyer v. Doe to do it. You wonder why this country's gone to shit since the 70s and 80s. In the 70s, 71, we totally annihilated our relationship with silver and gold coins, causing an inflationary nightmare that's never ended. And then in 1982, they added fucking illegal aliens under the same goddamn amendment U.S. citizens have. And nobody even fucking knows what a real citizen is, a white citizen of a state. You wonder what's fucking wrong with this country, okay? So 18 U.S.C. 7 includes the high seas or other waters within the admiralty and maritime jurisdiction of the United States, which means the District of Columbia, and out of the jurisdiction of any particular state and any vessel belonging in whole or in part to the United States, meaning the District of Columbia, or any citizen thereof, meaning U.S. citizens, or to any corporation created by or under the laws of the United States, which again would be a U.S. citizen. See, are you starting to see it? Or of any state. They're using definition number 2, congressional definition. They're not using the constitutional definition. They're not referring to California or Utah in this definition. It's physically impossible because, again, the entire point is to separate it out. The federal government has only a few basic concerns over the actual states of the Union, the states of the Republic. Like I said, the tendering and the creation of gold and silver coin and the Commerce Clause. So interstate commerce and commerce with Indian tribes. That's it. So obviously that definition number 1 of state wouldn't be this one. It'd be definition number 2, territory, district, or possession thereof, when such vessel is within the admiralty and maritime jurisdiction of the United States and out of the jurisdiction of any particular state. Confusing, right? It just means it's international in nature, thus it's under the District of Columbia. It's that fucking simple. That's it. Any vessel registered, licensed, or enrolled, any U.S. citizen. It's still talking about U.S. citizens here, basically. Any lands reserved or acquired for the use of the federal government and under the exclusive or concurrent jurisdiction thereof, or any price purchased or otherwise acquired by the United States by consent of the legislature or the state, in which the same shall be for the erection of a fort, magazine, arsenal, dockyard, or other needful building, like military buildings, military stuff, federal military stuff. That's all obviously under the federal government because it's not a domestic concern. That's why everybody freaks out when they say, like, bring the military onto the streets to, like, quell, like, uprisings or riots. They freak out because technically you can't do that because California is domestic in its concerns, and you're mixing the federal and the state. It's basically unconstitutional, essentially. I believe there's some kind of, I forget all the provisions of that, but I think there's some provision where they can maybe do that. I forget all the details of that. But anyways, the Second Amendment is our amendment for our militia. Like every single white citizen of the state is responsible for our grand juries, responsible for our courts of common law, our common law courts of record, responsible for our militias. Like, we are members of the sovereignty. We are the Ninth Amendment. We are the sovereign citizens. And I know people have a bad reaction to that term, but that's literally what it is. I've been wrong all these fucking years, and I'm here trying to repair all of the information that I truly thought at the time was correct, but as we've advanced now into these, like, monstrously deep stratospheres of understanding all this information, we're now starting to get at this whole new level of crazy understanding about all this stuff that's has never existed on this fucking planet since the fucking founding fathers. So if you think of the United States of America as one giant fucking trust, the founding fathers were the grantors, and then they also became like the trustees, many of them, right? And then we, as white citizens of the state, are successor trustees. We are now taking the position of the people who are white citizens who are dying off or leaving or something's happening to them. And we are the new members of the sovereignty. And we set up the fucking federal government. We are stockholders of that corporation. So we control the domestic side, and we also control the congressional side. The problem is that we're trustees, and we have to follow everything that's inside the trust. The trust is basically like all of the laws and everything. So we can't just do whatever we want. We have to follow like all the information of the way the trust is set up, right? And the trust was never set up to have this second citizenship class created by Congress and to make a citizenship class specifically under the federal government. That was never supposed to happen. That was never part of the deal. That it just fucked everything up. Sorry. Some people are going to say, well, how else can the Negro have gotten any protections? They wouldn't have. To tell you the truth. They wouldn't have. We'd still have slavery to this day, maybe. I don't know. But I'm just saying, the damage that confusing aspect did to our republic is unbelievable. Everything that you hate about this country stems from the 14th Amendment, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And I know that sounds terribly fucking racist. I am the greatest racist cult leader to ever walk the earth. So I will not ever back down from something that can make me an even better racist cult leader. But that's not really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it created this legal confusion that just fucked up this beautiful system that we had. These guys were brilliant, and they tried to figure out the situation as best they could. And the way that he talks about it in the slaughterhouse cases is like, these are all just additional protections. You guys still have all your protections. And like, you can tell they were trying to like make it so fucking cool. Like, these guys are cool. Like, we're going to help them, but like, you guys still get all your stuff. Like, everyone wins. That was the original intent. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Okay. It's just that fast forward 100 years, and in my opinion, if you boil the whole thing down to a simplicity, they just failed to disseminate the truth of the information to the public. Because I'll tell you, by like the 1905, no one even knew what a fucking U.S. citizen even was. Samuel Freeman Miller was the only motherfucker that understood all this shit. Understood. If you go online to AI, if you go on AI and you take the 5 justices that passed the slaughterhouse cases and you take their names and you say, give me every single time this particular justice talked about citizenship in a court case, they're going to find Ward Hunt in U.S. v. Anthony. They're going to find Samuel Freeman Miller several times, Bradwell v. State, stuff like that. And then that's it. The other 3 guys never really talked about it. So like, as far as my research has gone, Samuel Freeman Miller was like the center of the whole thing. And then I started to kind of zone in on him. And I was like, wait a second, is this the guy? Is this the guy? And then you find out he worked 20 years of his life to free the Negro. His whole life was devoted to the idea of freeing the Negro. And then the whole thing kind of comes into perspective. Freeman Miller, Samuel Freeman Miller, was the core of everything. He was the guy kind of like designing and engineering and cooking all this shit up. All the other white people just didn't kind of give a fuck. They're like, whatever, this is kind of like your baby. And then by the turn of the 1900, the turn of the 20th century, nobody fucking knew anything about anything. And Samuel Freeman Miller said a few things and then died in like 1890. As of right now, that's kind of where the research is. It's just like he should have written a book, or I don't know what. He should have left behind a bit more of a guide map than just the slaughterhouse cases. The slaughterhouse cases is considered like the guide map. And it's just like, obviously no one fucking understands the slaughterhouse cases. Otherwise we wouldn't have this issue, right? So this is what they're talking. So like, for example, if you go back in time, like if you go to Title 48 of the USC, it's called Territories and Insular Possessions. And it has here the Canal Zone. We saw that earlier. Virgin Islands, Guam. You can go through here and you can understand. We've got a Bureau of Insular Affairs. You say to yourself, oh, Alaska and Hawaii. Yeah, they were U.S. territories for the longest time. And then they became states. And as you can see, everything in here is omitted or repealed because they became legal sovereign states of the Union back in like the 1940s, 1950s, something like that. Here's Puerto Rico. You want to learn all about the structure of the U.S. territory / insular possession of Puerto Rico, you can come here. Guam, Samoa, Virgin Islands, Northern Mariana Islands, Micronesia, Marshall Islands, Palau. Do you see California here anywhere? Every time they say territories and insular possessions, I'm going to take you back. Downs versus Bidwell. We have in this country substantially or practically two national governments. One to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions. The other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument by exercising such powers as other nations of the earth are accustomed to exercise. This is not evil or goofy or fucked up. This is exactly how everything's supposed to work. The only wrench that got thrown into the middle of the engine that was running just fine was the U.S. Citizen 14th Amendment classification. That is it, my friends. You remove that and we go back to a republic instantly. You pull the 14th Amendment, which Congress has already said it's fucking not even... It was never legally ratified. As I showed you earlier, you can find that on my website in various places. That is the issue, my friends. That is the issue. Okay? So, we're going to skip through some of this. So the Magna Carta, right? So there's a lot of bullshit on the internet about this. Sovereign citizens and their Magna Carta. You see Magna Carta all over the place. You got fucking Taney talking about it. We got Miller talking about it. It's all over the place in the 1800s. The Magna Carta is what created this whole thing of you have the king and the queen and they're the sovereignty. And then that sovereignty was expanded to be the whole state. And every single person is a member of that sovereignty. Look, if you want to see with your own eyes what being a member of the sovereignty, a state citizen, really looks like, go on Netflix and start watching Wild West movies. There's a bunch of new ones. There's one on Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp. It's not Tombstone. It's like a new like documentary style thing where they like act out everything. It's fucking awesome. There's a bunch. I've watched a whole bunch of them because I've just been kind of getting into it. I'll tell you right now, all the research I've been doing, research on the sheriff, research on how the sheriff operated, research on local towns, how the towns operated, how the courts operated. Bro, these movies and documentaries do an absolutely phenomenal job of period correct state citizenship republic operations before the advent of the 14th Amendment and the U.S. citizen class. Everyone carried guns. They call it the Wild West. Oh, it's the Wild West. No, motherfucker. That's America. I'm telling you. And you say, oh, we couldn't do that now. Fuck you, we can't do that now. Fuck you, we can't do that now. How do you think it'd be if every white man carried a fucking pistol on his hip? You really think we're going to have all these fucking pedos and all this other crazy shit that we're having to deal with right now? I don't think so, my friend. The Ninth Amendment is the sovereignty amendment. White citizens of the state, we can do fucking anything we want. I could go out here right now, you know, it's California. Would I care if I carried a machine gun down the road on my back? It would create chaos and havoc. Okay, so would that be covered under my Ninth Amendment or my Second Amendment? You know, there's different schools of thought on that. The thing is, I wouldn't want to cause all this fucking disruption and chaos with everybody and do all this kind of stuff. But the idea that I would have a machine gun in my car, maybe I want to have it to protect myself. It's covered under the Second Amendment and the Ninth Amendment. The Second Amendment is what you see in all of these old Wild West movies. That's the Second Amendment. We are all law enforcement. We are all grand juries. We are the ones who have to put together. You see this Blondie, the Blondie movies. It's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly with Blondie. Go and watch those. You'll see this guy, he's on a horse, and he's got a noose coming down from a tree, and the whole town is standing around, and the whole town was the grand jury, and they are members of the sovereignty, and they got together, and they did the court case, and the guy had due process, and then the people decided that he needs to die by hanging, and then they go out there, and they have this whole kind of rigmarole where they read off this thing of, you have hereby been convicted of the blah, blah, blah. And then Blondie would go out there with his repeater rifle that loads like this, and he'd be, fucking 200-300 yards out, and he would, right as the thing was he would shoot the rope, and they would go from town to town, and they would fuck with everybody and steal shit, and it's real. It's a real thing. That's really how it went down, right? Because if you went one town over or two towns over, nobody knew who you were anymore. So you could steal and do all sorts of crazy shit and go two towns over, and you got a brand new life. So obviously that's also very correct. Obviously they had newspapers and stuff like that, but if you really want to see it with your own eyes, and then you start having all these thoughts, because I think about it all the time, how would that look in today's society? If we were to bring back the white citizen of the state, we would clean up all this craziness. If we pulled the 14th Amendment tomorrow, what would the country look like? Every single jury would be white men above the age of 21 who, all voters would have to be white men above the age of 21, and they have to own land. So I wouldn't even qualify actually to vote. I would definitely go get some land because I'd want to vote at that point. So I would call someone. I've had a million people offer me free land for like the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition and stuff. I would get some land in 6 seconds. I would definitely want to get some land because I want to vote in that system, right? Government's super small, like they said in TJ quotes Thomas Jefferson. Everyone's got a gun. Everyone is part of grand juries, and then you just have like total fucking freedom. You can. Like imagine those old dusty towns, and just imagine cars and better built buildings and different clothing, and everyone's got a pistol on the hip, and a sleepy sheriff may need to come in and make sure boys will be boys and make sure they don't hurt anybody else in the process. I mean, if a sovereign and another sovereign, if two kings decide they want to fucking kill each other, what right does the sheriff have to get involved in that? His right is to make sure that the two kings trying to kill each other don't kill other people in the process. And that's where the whole thing comes from. The old Blondie, the man with no name, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You have the steps. They take the steps and they turn, and everyone's kind of ducked and out of the way, and they're kind of watching. It's like the sheriff just makes sure you guys are going to shoot each other. Don't hit the buildings, don't hit the kids, don't hit the women, and don't hit innocent men that might be standing by the sign. That's it. That's all you can do. Two kings want to kill each other. What right does he have to stop that? You'll start to really see it. And when you see it and you read the law, you'll realize, holy fuck, this is how it's actually supposed to be. This is America. And you'll see that in my book. I cover that in great detail in my book, okay? The Magna Carta is what created this whole shift from king and queen is the sovereignty to the whole fucking citizenship. All the citizens all together are all the sovereignty. And the citizens are members of that sovereignty. And that's the Magna Carta. So I'm not going to get into that anymore because that's just, we're going to start skipping over this, right? More stuff about the word Negro, all sorts of definitions, definition of color, African descent, colored, all sorts of stuff from that. We're going to skip over that. We've already covered a lot of this individual stuff. 1 USC Section 8, the term person, human being, child, and individual includes a born alive infant. This is really kind of wild and strange. This is actually why I don't use the term human being. because of this section here. You can read that for yourself. You can come on here and read this. I'm going to start speeding through this a bit. Some different ways that I define the word, but I've already told you my definition. This is the one that I use now for everything. The term person shall be construed to mean any man, woman, child, or legal fiction with rights and obligations under the 14th Amendment. Again, like I told you before, it's not all about legal fiction. It's not all about maritime admiralty. It's about the 14th Amendment. Everything comes down to 14th Amendment, yes or no. That's it. You've been looking for that centerpiece. Everyone wants to run around and say the same shit. Everyone wants to find that center piece. Well, that's the centerpiece. I'm telling you. The ultimate presumption is, well, it's not even a presumption. They ask you all the time, right? A white citizen of a state would be domiciled in his state, not a resident. Or just a citizen. Citizen of California is saying the same thing as domiciled in California. Okay, Incorporation Doctrine. So, what is the Incorporation Doctrine? So, over the years, many years, the judicial branch, meaning the courts, have been able to cherry pick various sections of the Bill of Rights that they've decided apply to their own private federal citizenship class. They control their own citizens, so they get to decide what rights and privileges that their own citizens have. Now, if me as a white citizen of a state want to go into a court of law, I can say just First Amendment, just straight up. I have the First Amendment. I have freedom of speech. I have this, I have that. Anyone with rights and obligations under the 14th Amendment, which would include illegal aliens, non-whites, whites that are not citizens of a state, meaning Puerto Rico, Northern Mariana Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands, they have to come in here and they have to find the case that incorporated that particular right into the 14th Amendment class. So they wouldn't say, I have a right to a religion on the 14th Amendment. That's why you always see in these court cases and stuff, they're like, the Constitution doesn't apply to you at all, it doesn't apply in my court, all this kind of stuff. That's correct. The way that you would say, I have guarantees against me being prevented from establishing my religion comes from Everson v. Board of Education, 330 U.S. 1 from 1947. You wouldn't say, I have the ability to freely exercise my religion under the First Amendment. As I can say that, I can say Ninth Amendment too. Everything is whatever enumerated amendment plus fuck it, Ninth Amendment, fuck you. I can do that. That's how I would do it. You can't do that if you're a U.S. citizen, an illegal alien, a black, any of this stuff. You can't do it. You would have to come in here and say, I have the free exercise of religion under Hamilton v. Regents of the University of California, 293 U.S. 245, which is a case that happened in 1934. And you would have to go and read this case. And you would use quotes from this case to win your case on the free exercise of your religion. You would also read Cantwell v. Connecticut. Freedom of speech. Oh, I have a freedom of speech. No, you don't, bitch. But if you say, I have freedom of speech under Gitlow v. New York 268 U.S. 652 1925 case, and here's the exact quotes that are directly affected to my situation, that'll work. And that's why I told you, relax on the whole freak out mode over not being a white citizen of a state, because you can still do a lot of crazy shit. In fact, one of the things you can do as a non-white, non-citizen of a state is you can start pressing for incorporation for all of the things that have not yet been incorporated. So you can actually be the guy who fixes all this shit within the system. So you've got all this stuff. You got to go read the cases. Second Amendment. Second Amendment was incorporated in 2010 in a case called McDonald versus Chicago. Now, McDonald versus Chicago applies to home defense. So if you have concealed carry and you're carrying around in your truck, would McDonald versus Chicago apply? I don't know. But when you understand a court procedure and you understand the law, the whole point would be you'd be pressing to expand the incorporation of McDonald versus Chicago. You see that? See that? So you wouldn't come in and say, oh, as per McDonald versus Chicago, I have a right to concealed carry in my car. You'd say McDonald versus Chicago already partially incorporated it for home use. But if I own my car, and you would relate it to like other things in the 14th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act. Civil Rights Act says that I have a right to this, I have a right to that. You would tie it all together and you would use it as a justification to expand the incorporation of McDonald versus Chicago. And you say, holy fuck, Brandon, that's complicated. I understand. And that's why that is the huge monster advantage that a white citizen of a state does have over a 14th Amendment a privilegee. It's a huge advantage. Now, think about this. Plyer v. Doe, which included the illegal aliens under the protections of the 14th Amendment, they have all these same incorporated... So an illegal alien from fucking, I don't know, some fucking country can come into America illegally, drive around with a car, and then go into court and do exactly what I just said. They don't have to be U.S. citizens. They also have McDonald versus Chicago. Do you see the problem here? Do you see what's going on with this country? So you walk around and you say, oh, America, I hate America, or America's a bunch of bullshit. You don't even fucking see it, bro. Read my book, watch a few fucking Western movies, understand 14th Amendment versus state citizenship, and they're going to be like, oh my God, this isn't America at all. Yeah, welcome to fucking reality, bitch. Welcome to fucking reality. That's the fucking reality. Oh man, I'm woken up now. Yeah, well, welcome. Welcome. I don't see any of this shit. I don't even see it. Like, oh, illegal alien? I don't even fucking see it, bro. Like in my world, if I don't see, I just see Blondie and fucking ropes and fucking saloons, man. That's all I see. Call me delusional. I think this is delusional. When I walk out here and I look around at what's going on, that's a fucking delusion. My shit's the real shit. This is a fucking delusion. It's not real. And that's why the country's so fucked up. Fourth Amendment. Third Amendment's not incorporated at all, but it's like, I forget what, it's like military people can't garrison in your home during times of war. So I forget. Don't quote me on that, but I don't remember. God damn it. What's the Third Amendment? Prohibits the government from forcing citizens to quarter soldiers in their home during peacetime without consent. So, could that be used against you? Well, whatever, but whatever, right? Fourth Amendment, fully incorporated. So you get pulled over and you get your license plates taken off the car, your Amnesty Coalition license plates, or cop takes your phone or whatever. You wouldn't say Fourth Amendment. You'd say Aguilar v. Texas 378 U.S. 108. If they search your car without a fucking warrant, or if you feel that you were unreasonably searched and seized, you wouldn't say Fourth Amendment. You'd say Mapp v. Ohio. You got to go read the case. Fifth Amendment, partially incorporated. The right to indictment by a grand jury is not incorporated in accordance with Hurtado versus California. Now, this one is monstrous. This is the one of the biggest differences between a state citizen and a 14th Amendment citizen. And I have a whole section about this on the treatise on the word person. We're not going to get into it. It's a lot. I'm going to simplify the whole thing for you. And then if you want to go and look it up, it's extremely important. Hurtado versus California made it to where under the 14th Amendment, they can prosecute you via what's called an information. So when you have these prosecutors, these state prosecutors or federal prosecutors, and they just like press charges against people and you have to like go in and like defend yourself against like the state prosecutor, that's all under Hurtado versus California. Hurtado versus California basically said that the Negroes don't have a right to the grand jury because they're under the 14th Amendment. You can just fucking do whatever you want. You can prosecute them. Just fuck you. Come in. You're in fucking trouble. And that's totally fine. That's totally legal. Hurtado versus California did that. Hurtado versus California has absolutely zero fucking application to a white citizen of a state. And then the grand juries that they do put together at the state level are all fucking U.S. citizens. And the grand juries they put together at the federal level are all fucking U.S. citizens. So none of that applies to a white citizen of a state either. You are a member of a sovereignty. Only other members of that same sovereignty. So if one of the kings kills a woman, an action of passion, it's the job of all the other kings and queens to do a grand jury indictment on that motherfucker and hang his ass in the middle of town square. But the Negroes can't do it. You didn't see any Negroes hanging anybody because they're not members of the sovereignty. U.S. citizens aren't members of that sovereignty. So if I fucked around and did some horrible shit, U.S. citizens can't build a grand jury of U.S. citizens to indict me or to prosecute me. They would have to go and find white citizens of my nation state, which is California. So you'd have to put together a grand jury to indict me, and it would need to be other white citizens of California. So what does that mean? I can't get traffic tickets. I can't be hauled in off of like a California penal code. That's all information. I can't have a grand jury indictment by any U.S. citizen grand jury. This is, in my opinion, I mean, I think it's factual, but you could say my opinion. In my opinion, this is one of the most massive differences. Besides the Ninth Amendment, okay, the Ninth Amendment is the biggest difference. Let's just be totally honest. The 10th Amendment as well, but really the Ninth Amendment is really what everyone's looking for more so than the 10th. The Ninth Amendment, okay, the Ninth Amendment is for sure the biggest difference. Take it back. This is the second, I would say most likely the second biggest difference. It's very freeing to know that like California Penal Code has nothing to do with me. Can't be bothered if I get, any state prosecutor calls me. It's like, dude, you're wasting my time. Federal prosecutor, FBI calls me. You're wasting my time. I can't be indicted through one of your informations, and I also can't be indicted through U.S. citizen grand jury. So if you want to indict me, you're going to need to go and find other white citizens of California to indict me. Now, the downside of that is, as you'll see in the Wild West films, the grand juries that are put together by white citizens of the state were notoriously violent. It was just kill the motherfucker. That was basically the answer to everything. Yeah, he did this, kill him. He did that, kill him. He did this, kill him. Do you want to shoot him or do you want to hang him? You want to hang him off a horse? Like what you see in the Blondie movies where they put him on a horse and then they smack the back of the horse and the horse runs and he hangs. Do we want to do gallows? Do we want to build the gallows and make it more of a public spectacle? Do we want to do a firing line? Do we want to put them in the stocks? When women would cheat on their husband, they'd put them in the fucking stocks in the hot sun for 2 days. It's notoriously pretty violent. So like it's really hard to indict me. It's really hard to prosecute me. But if it ever happened for some reason, if I did something bad enough to warrant something like that, yeah, I'm probably going to get like fucking some horrible thing's going to happen to me. So it's much harder to get there. But when you're there, it's a pretty horrible situation typically, right? So it's not all butterflies. Okay. We white citizens of the state are like, we're supposed to be like the shining example. We're the trustees. We're the successor trustees of the fucking founding fathers, bro. Like this chair that I'm sitting in right now is TJ's chair. Thomas Jefferson. George Washington's chair. I am sitting in GW's chair. I am sitting in TJ's chair. That's how it is. So people want to they want all the benefits of all the sovereignty and they want the Ninth Amendment, but they don't want to do all the work to fix the fucking country that's a disaster. That's not how this works. You're going to learn in the Law of Nations, rights and obligations are tied together. If you want all the benefits of the Ninth Amendment and saying fuck Hurtado versus California, it comes with a price tag. And that price tag is, you are the shining example of an American. You are responsible for our country, our Constitution. You are, you can't have any foreign, as per the Naturalization Act of 1802, you can't have any foreign allegiance to anybody. There is no such thing as foreign allegiance. If you have foreign allegiance, I will personally put the gun in your mouth and pull the trigger. That's treason. You will die by my hand. I will, if I don't have a weapon, I will choke you to death and watch the life leave your fucking body for treason. That doesn't exist in this world. There is no foreign allegiance. Doesn't exist. No other country exists besides, maybe something fun to experience for a short time out of just sheer enjoyment. That's it. Going to Italy, the idea that I would give allegiance, now I'll help Italy. Italy's a friend. We'll shake hands if they need help, if they need economic help. That's totally fine. I'm not their enemy. But the idea to me, the idea of pledging foreign allegiance is just death. All these people talking about Israel and all this stuff right now, it's just death. That's all it is. The idea that I would go and kiss the wall in Israel it's literally just suicide. Why not just put a gun? Why not just take a fucking gun, cock it, put it in my fucking mouth, and blow my head off? It's the same fucking thing. It's exactly the same thing. So when you're getting involved in this, if you want to be a white citizen of a state, it's not all... I love my obligations. I love having these duties imposed upon me. I am thrilled. I love being a trustee of the Constitution. It's fantastic. I would kill myself if I couldn't do this stuff. So just keep in mind, it's not all puppies and rainbows. It's not just you can just drive around at 400 miles an hour and smoke crack pipes. That's not what this is. Okay? Sixth Amendment, partially incorporated. Right to jury selection from residents of the state and district where the crime occurred. That's the part that's not incorporated. So if you did find white citizens of the states to come and indict me, my Sixth Amendment right would be that they would have to be from my local area. Glendale, California, or some very close kind of surrounding area, ideally Glendale, California. Seventh Amendment is not incorporated at all. That one's about like you have a right to a jury trial in a federal case, I think. I'm not going to get into it. You can look it up. Eighth Amendment is incorporated. So if there was some kind of excessive bail, you wouldn't say I have an Eighth Amendment protection against that. You would say I have a protection under Schilb v. Kubel, 404 U.S. 357 1971. Now, people will say this is all bullshit. They'll never do it. They actually do. They actually are quite willing to give you a lot of this stuff if you just word it in that way. If you go read the case and you actually put this together, if you are a 14th Amendment citizen, you'd be surprised how often and how willing they are to actually give this stuff to you, because they've already, it's like precedent. This is like precedent. It's the same way they behave with all other case law, okay? So you read the case, you relate your situation to the case, and to justify the fact that you have it, you put that in the case. So I can just say 9th Amendment, 2nd Amendment, fuck you, right? But it's not all that much worse for a 14th Amendment citizen. The Hurtado versus California thing is horrifying. That's definitely a problem. And not having a 9th Amendment sucks. But in terms of everything else, it's more manageable than you would think. So being really upset about all this, it's really not that bad. Like if I was a 14th Amendment citizen, I would just be able to use all this and use court procedure, and I'd be able to get almost everything done. Right to travel would be through case law. I mean, you can still do a lot of shit, you know. So it's not all gloom and doom really under the 14th Amendment. The Hurtado versus California thing is pretty horrifying. And not having a 9th Amendment sucks fucking giant balls. Those are the two biggest problems, right? Okay. Let me see. Is there anything else I want to cover here? Let's see. Let me take a quick peek at my outline. The passport. So whenever you look at any code or statute, if you're trying to figure out who it applies to, you have to take the definition of person and the definition of resident and basically mix them together. Like the California Vehicle Code, stuff like that. If you're a white citizen of a state, the 9th Amendment obliterates like literally everything. So it's like nothing to even think about. I will show you the passport on this one. The passport is way different than how we used to do it. It's actually very, very easy. It's only going to take me a few minutes to explain this, which I know it sounds crazy because there's so many videos that we've done this in the past and it's so complicated and all this kind of stuff. It's super easy now, guys. It's so fucking easy. So here is the resources and documents page on the Amnesty Coalition. Here's the explanatory statement. So the explanatory statement, I'm not going to go through all this. I don't need to. I've already done it with you on video 1 and 2. So you'll see here, I'm a what is this? White state citizen requesting a U.S. citizen passport for a sole proprietorship. Some information, all the case law, all the stuff that I've already covered with you. Here's the quote from U.S. v. Anthony with fucking Ward Hunt. And there's Ellen R. Van Valkenburg versus Albert Brown. If you understand the first and second video of this course, you can write this whole document from scratch with like no effort. Okay? Here's the covenant of an ambassador for the Amnesty Coalition. And all you're going to do is you're going to get that DS-11. I know I've talked about these endorsement codes before. Diplomat, official, endorsement numbers. This stuff, they've never issued any of it to anybody. So if you want to go and search more information about all that kind of stuff, but it's just they've never given anybody any of that shit. So I don't think it's worth your time to even get into any of this. You can do U.S. passport book, U.S. passport card, or both. The card is only good for domestic travel, but I love it. It's really nice to use for bars or whatever. I mean, I have my own Nation of the Amnesty Coalition cards and stuff, and we have new ones that are coming out soon. But still, I think it'd be great if you can afford it to get both. Regular book is fine. I've never even seen what the large book looks like. That one's huge, apparently, and it's for people who travel a lot. The name here is going to be the sole prop. Last name. First name. Joe. Date of birth is going to be the date of the date of the registration date of when your birth certificate was registered or processed. So in my case, it was this date. Okay. And then for place of birth, actually, now that I think about it, I would actually do district. Actually, this is interesting. What would I do here? This is an interesting question. Place of birth. I'd never thought about this before. Place of birth, city and state, if in the U.S., or city and country. Man, if I were to redo this in a new unit of time, if you guys want to be a little bit edgy about this, I would do District of Columbia or Washington, D.C. Because the sole prop is born in an area under 4 U.S.C. 72, which is an area that's exercised in the District of Columbia. They may deny this, but I would actually probably go for this. Or if you want to less risky, just wherever your state and wherever. Social Security number, people try so hard not to type that in. Social Security number is the taxpayer identifying number for the sole proprietorship. You've never had one. You cannot get one if you even fucking ever tell anyone. Ever. If I ever hear about anybody who's a white citizen of a state saying that you have a Social Security number, you're fucking out. You're not allowed to be a part of my nation committing felonies. Fuck you. You can't have a fucking Social Security number. Sorry. Can't have one. It's fucking impossible and illegal. It's not you getting the Social Security number. It's not you getting the passport. So who gives a fuck? Just put the Social Security number in there. Who cares? Put the email in there. What's the mailing address for the sole proprietorship? I don't know. 123 Purple Monkey Lane. I don't know. You can do rule-free delivery. You can do that too. This is how I would do it. Fucking A. I would just try this. Fuck it. I have... This is... You can put a P.O. box... P.O. box, it lets you put a P.O. box in here if you want to. So you can do P.O. box. Maybe I would do P.O. box. 1962. I would be willing to have them just take my $300 and not get a passport. So just keep in mind the way that I'm doing this. If you want to be less risky, you can do like a lot of the stuff that people normally do. Like put your normal state and city here, put your normal stuff in here. So that's the name of the person that is supposed to get the passport. See name. And then down here you have name of applicant. This would be... That's how I would do it. Parents are U.S. citizens, just put no. This whole birthright citizenship thing that they're doing right now at the Supreme Court, they're going to have that coming out here pretty soon, June or July probably. If they do that, just so you guys know, it may change all this, because if you say no for U.S. citizen on both parents and they remove birthright citizenship, they might pull our passports. I'm ready for all that, bro. I don't care. I'll do it all over again, and we'll figure it all out again. I don't give a fuck. But I'm just letting you guys know that could happen. Parents, all this stuff. They want all this stuff. Just type all that in, whatever. And then I would do no for U.S. citizen. I mean, it doesn't even fucking matter. It's just the sole prop getting it, right? And then... I don't even know, bro. There's a part of me... I kind of want to go a little bit crazy here. There's a part of me that might that would just put like, I don't know, like just business here because it's a business, and then NA, and then height. Dude, there's a part of me like legit that'd be like down to fucking put NA here. Just to see. Just to see. I don't know what would happen. But the sole prop does not have height. The sole prop does not have eye color. The sole prop does not have eye color. None. And then here's the permanent address. This is the actual important one. This is the one where I'd probably go 123 Purple Monkey Lane. AC. Amnesty Coalition. I would probably do some crazy shit like this. If you're worried about this, you can do rule-free delivery. We've been doing that for years. That's totally fine. I'm just kind of going pretty wild here. This is kind of like the wild version, Wild Boy. And then when I sign, it would be without prejudice. You can do without recourse too, I suppose. And then you would sign. So without prejudice, by, colon, so sign it, and then comma, owner. You can put without recourse on there if you want. It's just not, I don't think it's necessarily required. But without prejudice, by, sign, and then comma, owner. Because you are the owner of the sole proprietorship. That's how I would do it. But like I said, if you want to be safer about it, if you have like no fucking money and this is like a lot of money for you, I would put the normal place of birth here. And I would put rule-free delivery here for permanent address. And yeah. But if you want to get wild, that's how I would do it. And then, like I said, the signature is going to be without prejudice. And then below that, it would be by, colon, and then signature, comma, owner. Like that. But this part would be underneath this part. I just don't have like a text file or anything to show it to you. So this would go down here like this. That's how you'd sign it, right? And that's in accordance with UCC 1-308. I know a lot of guys say put the literal word UCC 1-308 in the signature. Totally don't do that. That's not required at all. It actually looks like you don't know shit about anything. Just do without prejudice. That's all you need. And that's how I would do it if I were to redo all this right now. But it's super easy. It's just you and you're getting a passport on behalf of the sole prop. Sole prop was born under either Washington, D.C. or an area that falls under 4 U.S.C. 72, which is Washington, exercised in Washington, D.C. So that's why I would do Washington, D.C. here. And then I would do this, non-citizen, non-national, non-citizen/resident of the U.S. And, yeah. I would try these NAs. That'd be kind of fun. The chance that they're going to like deny this or ask for additional information is probably pretty high with this one. But a lot of times what they'll do is they'll just send you a letter and they'll be like, oh, we're missing a few pieces of information from your application. Please fill out the following information. You fill it out and you mail it in and they won't make you pay again. They'll actually process it. But like I said, if you're like fucked for money, I would maybe be a little bit more chill with some of this stuff if you really need a passport. But anyways, that's how I would do it. And then you would just get this printed off, read it, get it notarized, change all the words and change all the information to match your information, print this off, and then you would attach that to the DS-11 when you go in and turn it in at the passport application center. Okay, that's pretty easy. And then, yeah, I mean, I know we've gone into that in way more detail before, but it's just super like not important. Like I've seen so many weird things put on these applications and they just don't even like disapprove them ever. So like, and like for the longest time, people who weren't putting any social security numbers on there, they were disapproving them. There was some stupid ass case that everyone sent to me. They thought, oh wow, now we don't need to put a social security number on the passport anymore because some lady won some Supreme Court case. On my case critique page, I did a video on it. If you go to williamslawfirm.com and you go to my case critique page, which is where I'm critiquing other people's cases, and you go down to, let's see here. Case, Case 5, Jordan versus Blinken. This is the recap link. You can actually see all of the documentation. So recap is basically like Pacer is to get into like any federal case, and you can download all the docket items from the federal case for like 10 cents per page. Recap is a browser extension. We're going to get into it later in the course, where whenever anyone buys anything from Pacer, it automatically goes into Recap forever for anyone for free. You don't need to pay anymore. So you can go down in any of the blue items. You can just download without having to pay for them. This is the whole case of this lady who won, saying that she doesn't need a social security number on her passport due to religious reasons. But it's fucking who cares? We're getting it on behalf of the sole prop. Who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter. Sole prop's got a fucking taxpayer identification number. Who cares? Doesn't fucking matter. I don't see the point. This is the only thing that ever pissed off the Department of State. They used to send us things that said, sign here stating under penalty of perjury that you've never been issued a social security number. People would sign that, send it back, and then they would say, nope, sorry, and they would deny. And I think since this case, they stopped doing that. But like, I'm telling you, that's the only real issue I've ever seen anybody have. And who gives a flying fuck? It's not for us anyways. Who cares? Just fucking put the social security number in there. Have I ever seen somebody get a denial on a passport because they didn't put in their height and their eye color? No. So I think the worst thing that will happen is they'll send you a letter and it'll say, hey, we need, there's a few questions on the thing that were never answered. Please fill out this information. And then if you want to put NA again and send it back and see what happens, you can try that. Or if you're more nervous or you really need to get it done, just at that point, you would have to actually answer it. But I'm at the point now where I would just put NA again and then sign it and send it back and see what happens. Just because I just test everything now. I'm like a mad scientist, bro. I just want to see reaction videos of I just want to see what the fuck they'll do, right? So anyways, that's it on this video. I don't have anything else to say on this. We have now kind of passed the major meat and potatoes involving citizenship and legal fictions and stuff like that. That's pretty much everything. Now we're going to start getting into nations, building your own nation, sovereignty, the structure of the Amnesty Coalition, stuff like that is next. So there you go, guys. I hope this is helpful. This is video number 2, Contract Killer Course 3.0. I hope you guys are loving this. These first 2 videos are a lot of the main differences between the 3.0 and the previous courses. Everything else is going to be a lot different, but this is like a way different than how things were before. So thank you very much. Glad you guys are here, and I will see you at video number 3. Racist cult leader out.